I wasn't even expecting anything that day. I remember it was a Thursday because I'd just come back from grabbing groceries and was pissed off that someone dinged my car door in the parking lot. So when I saw a small box sitting at my front door with that bright orange "Return to Sender" sticker on it, I figured it was something I'd ordered ages ago and forgot about. The weird part? My name and address were on it, clear as day, but I hadn't sent anything out. I don't sell stuff online, I don't mail random packages, and I definitely didn't recognize the handwriting on the label. It looked rushed, shaky even, like whoever wrote it was in a hurry or nervous. I should have just tossed it or taken it to the post office, but curiosity got the better of me. When I opened the box, I found an old smartphone inside, beat up, screen cracked, no charger or anything. Just the phone wrapped in a single layer of bubble wrap that didn't do much. It was a weird model, like one of those off-brand Androids you only see in discount bins. I hit the power button out of instinct, and to my surprise, it turned on. Battery was at 12%. No lock screen, no password. It went straight to the home screen, which was pretty much empty except for the gallery and messages icons. That's when I started to feel uneasy. Something about the simplicity of it, like it was meant for someone to find and look through, made my skin crawl a bit. Still, I tapped gallery. There were only 3 videos. The thumbnails were dark and grainy, but the middle one had a still image that froze me. It was a picture of my house, taken from the street at night. I didn't even realize I was holding my breath until I tapped the video. It was maybe 30 seconds long, filmed from across the street, shaky like it was taken by hand. It showed my front porch, that night, with the porch light on and my shadow moving inside behind the curtains. I felt this sudden wave of nausea. Whoever filmed this was outside my house recently, maybe even the night before. And they were close. Too close. I paused the video and backed out, thinking maybe this was some sick prank. But then I opened the second video. It was longer. This one was taken from inside a car, angled toward my driveway. You could hear someone breathing, just off camera, and then quietly they whispered my name. Not once. 3 times. Like they were practicing it. My full name too. Not just "Hey man" or something casual. I hadn't heard that tone before. It was cold, detached, like they weren't even human. My hands were sweating. I put the phone down and just sat there, staring at it like it would do something else on its own. I had this feeling, like someone was still watching me. I got up, checked all the windows, locked the doors again, even though they were already locked. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being observed. Then I opened the Messages app. There were only a few texts, all from one number, no contact name. Most of them didn't make sense, random phrases like "you sleep too heavy" and "you left the light on." But the last message, it was just a photo. It was me, asleep in my bed, clearly taken from my bedroom door. The angle was perfect. My room was dark, but the outline of my face, my bed, everything, it was all there. I didn't remember anyone being in my house. I didn't remember anyone ever having access to my room like that. I felt this full-body chill, like my nerves suddenly turned to static. I checked every inch of the house, closets, under the bed, even behind the shower curtain. Nothing. But it didn't calm me down. I couldn't stop thinking about how someone could have gotten into my place without me knowing. I don't live in a sketchy area, and I always lock up. I even have one of those dumb little door cameras, but for some reason, the feed wouldn't load when I tried checking it. It just kept buffering. That made it worse. Everything started feeling off. The air felt heavier, like I was breathing through a wet towel. And the worst part was realizing, whoever sent that package wanted me to see all of this. It wasn't just some random threat, it was personal. I went back to the phone one last time, thinking maybe I missed something that could explain what the hell was going on. I opened the file manager, and there was a folder named Look. Inside, just one audio file. I hit play, and for the first few seconds, it was just static and a low hum, almost like an engine idling. Then a voice, again mine. Not someone doing my voice, my actual voice, saying something I never remembered recording. "I see you." I swear to God, it was me. Same tone, same way I pronounce things. But I had no memory of saying it, and it sounded off somehow. Slower. Like someone had copied my voice and dragged it through mud. That's when I completely lost it. I turned the phone off, threw it back in the box, and shoved the whole thing in a drawer like that would undo everything. I tried to go about the rest of my day, but I couldn't concentrate on anything. I kept jumping at small noises, the fridge humming, my neighbor's dog barking, a car door slamming a few houses down. Every little sound made my skin crawl. I checked that drawer with the phone at least 5 times, just to make sure it was still off, like it might turn on by itself. At some point, I even considered going to the police, but what would I even say? Hey, someone sent me a creepy phone with videos of my house and texts that say they've been watching me. It sounded like I'd gone off the deep end. And honestly, part of me was afraid that involving someone else might make it worse. Like whoever sent it wanted a reaction, and if I dragged the cops into it, they'd escalate. Later that night, I couldn't sleep. I left the light on in the hallway and kept my bedroom door cracked open, which I never do. Around 2 a.m., I thought I heard something downstairs. It was subtle, like a soft creak or maybe just the house settling, but it was enough to get me out of bed. I grabbed the flashlight I keep in the nightstand and went downstairs as quietly as I could. Everything looked normal at first. No doors open, no windows broken. But then I noticed the box was no longer in the drawer. I swear, I had closed that drawer tight, shoved the box to the back. But now it was open, the phone lying on top, screen lit, recording. Not playing something. Recording. I froze. The screen was aimed right at me. I didn't know what to do. I just stared at that glowing screen for what felt like a full minute, heart pounding in my throat. I finally worked up the nerve to pick up the phone. It was recording through the front-facing camera, meaning it had been aimed at the room, not the inside of the drawer. But I put it in the drawer facing down, screen off. I stopped the recording and opened the video that had just been saved. It was shaky at first, black, then slowly it tilted up and pointed toward the living room, as if someone had picked it up and started filming. But there was no one in the video. Just my living room, perfectly still, until I entered the frame. That was the worst part. Watching myself walk in, completely unaware that I was being recorded by something that was supposedly off and shoved in a drawer minutes before. I couldn't take it anymore. I put the phone back in the box, duct taped it shut, and took it outside to the trash bin. I stood there for a good 10 seconds, staring at the bin, wondering if that would actually get rid of whatever was happening. Eventually, I slammed the lid shut and went back inside, but sleep wasn't happening. I lay in bed, lights on, covers up to my chin like a damn kid. My brain wouldn't stop spinning, trying to make sense of any of it. I hadn't done anything to deserve this. No enemies, no weird breakups, no creepy ex-friends. Just a normal guy who got a return package he never sent. The most frustrating thing was that none of it made sense, and at the same time, it felt deliberate. Like every part of this was planned, down to the last detail. The next morning, I went out early, barely slept a couple of hours. First thing I did was check the trash bin. The box was gone. Not buried, not moved, just gone. I live alone, no one else has access to the backyard. It hadn't even been trash day. That was when it really hit me. Someone had come back for it. I felt sick. I started looking for cameras around the house, thinking maybe I'd missed something hidden outside. Nothing. I checked every feed, every setting on the door cam, still nothing recorded from the night before. It was like none of it ever happened. But I know what I saw. I know what I heard. And I know that phone was watching me. I kept thinking about that whisper from the second video. My name. Over and over. Like they knew me. Like they were waiting. And just like that, it stopped. No more packages. No more messages. No weird videos. I changed the locks, switched out the door cam, even slept at a friend's place for a few nights, but nothing ever came back. You'd think I'd feel relieved, but honestly, it's worse not knowing. I keep wondering what the point of all that was. Was it just to scare me? Was it a test run for something bigger? Or did they already get what they wanted? I've told maybe 2 people in real life, and even they looked at me like I was going crazy. But I'm not. I know what I saw. That phone was in my house. It had videos of me, of my bed, of my voice, and whoever did that, they knew everything. And the part that keeps me up most nights is the idea that maybe they're still watching, but they just don't need the phone anymore. I've worked at the same small-town library for a little over 5 years now. It's not a busy place. Honestly, it's mostly quiet retirees, a few kids after school, and the occasional college student using the Wi-Fi. I like it that way. Peaceful, predictable. I know every regular by name, and even the way they place their books in the return chute tells me who they are. That's why it stuck out to me when I pulled a copy of the picture of Dorian Gray from the bin, and something slipped out from between the pages. It was a folded piece of notebook paper, yellowed at the creases like it had been in there a while. I probably wouldn't have thought twice about it. People leave receipts and bookmarks in books all the time, but this one had bold, angry handwriting, and the words were disturbing. It just said, "I know what you did. You think you're safe, but someone always pays." Soon you will too. That was it. No name, no date. Just those words. I figured maybe it was part of someone's writing project or some kind of prank. I showed it to Miriam, my co-worker, and we both kind of laughed it off, saying someone probably wrote it for effect. But when it happened again the next day, it wasn't funny anymore. Another book. Different title. Similar note. This one read, "You ruined everything. You took what was mine. I'll never forget your face." And again, no name, just that same frantic, angry scrawl. I started keeping them in a drawer under the desk, not really sure why. Maybe part of me was already uneasy, though I didn't want to admit it yet. By the end of that week, I had found 5 more notes. Always one per book, always slipped inside like some twisted message in a bottle. They varied in tone. Some sounded like threats, others like confessions. But they were all intense, full of this weird mix of grief and rage. What really got under my skin was that they all seemed directed at the same unnamed person. You don't get to forget what happened. I see your face in my dreams, and it's always screaming. Things like that. It didn't feel like some random prank anymore. It felt personal, like someone was genuinely trying to reach a specific person. I even started looking up who checked out the books, but none of the notes lined up with anyone in particular. Different people, different return dates. It made no sense. Then came the one that changed everything. It was in a paperback copy of Rebecca, and when I unfolded it, I felt my stomach drop. My name was on it. Not just a passing mention, my full name, spelled correctly. The note said, "I didn't think it was you. I didn't want it to be. But now I know. You're the one who took her." I read it over and over, trying to make sense of it. I hadn't taken anyone. I didn't even know what her meant. I started sweating right there at the desk, my hands shaking. I remember checking the security camera feed from the return slot, but of course it didn't show faces, just hands sliding books through. Nothing useful. That's when I stopped laughing it off. Something was seriously wrong. After that note, I couldn't focus on anything else. Every time a book came through the return chute, I felt my chest tighten. I started wearing gloves to go through them, like that would somehow protect me from whatever was coming. I didn't even tell Miriam about the last note. I felt weirdly ashamed, like maybe I was overreacting or losing it. But I wasn't imagining things. 2 days later, another note arrived. This one was shorter, almost like it had been scribbled in a rush. "Stop pretending. You know what happened. You know who she was." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every interaction I'd had in the library, wondering if I'd pissed someone off without realizing it. Was someone messing with me? Watching me? I tried to be rational, but the library doesn't exactly have high-tech security. No cameras in the main aisles, and anyone can drop a book off without ever seeing a staff member. I even thought about calling the cops, but what would I say? Someone's leaving creepy notes in donated books. They'd probably think it was a teenager being edgy or something. But it didn't feel like that. It felt deliberate. The worst part was, I started second-guessing my own memory. I kept wondering, did I know someone who went missing? Was there someone from my past I forgot about? Someone whose life I'd touched in a way I didn't remember? The fear started to eat at me, not just of whoever was leaving the notes, but of what they thought I'd done. Things escalated fast after that. I found 3 more notes in a single day. They weren't even hidden deep inside the books anymore, just barely tucked in the first few pages, almost like they wanted to be found immediately. The language was getting worse too. One said, "She screamed for you. Where were you?" Another just said, "Do you hear her at night? Because I do." The third one was the one that finally made me cry right there behind the circulation desk. "You watched her drown." That was the moment I realized this wasn't just creepy, it was malicious. It felt like someone was trying to unravel me from the inside, to make me doubt everything I thought I knew about myself. And it was working. I started checking the shelves constantly, pulling random books to see if there were more. Miriam asked what was going on, and I lied. I told her I was doing a surprise inventory check for damaged books. I don't know why I didn't tell her the truth. Maybe because deep down I didn't want to say the words out loud. Like that would make it all more real. I even took some of the notes home, thinking maybe I could analyze the handwriting or find some clue. But all I saw were more threats, more pain, more accusations, and all directed at me now. My name showed up in every single one after that. Sometimes just once, other times repeated, scrawled over and over like the person couldn't control themselves. One morning, I got to the library before opening, hoping to have a moment to breathe and maybe gather myself before dealing with the return chute again. But there was already a book sitting on the front counter. Just one. It hadn't come through the bin. I would have heard the flap. It was Wuthering Heights, and it was open. A note was sitting right on top of the pages, not tucked in this time. My heart was already pounding before I even touched it. This one was different. It was written in red ink, and the letters were Messier, like whoever wrote it was shaking. It said, "I see you. I saw you then. I'll make you remember if it kills me." I just stood there staring at it. I didn't even notice Miriam come in until she asked me if I was okay. I couldn't even answer. That day, I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every time the door opened, I flinched. I kept checking over my shoulder like someone was standing right behind me. But the worst part wasn't the fear. It was the doubt. I started genuinely questioning myself, my past, my memories. I even called my mom that night, asking vague questions about anyone I knew growing up who might have gone missing, or anything strange that ever happened when I was younger. She thought I was being paranoid. Maybe I was. But the notes kept coming, and they were getting angrier, more detailed. One described a body in the water. Another talked about fingernails scratching wood. That kind of detail doesn't just come from nowhere. I decided to do something I probably should have done way earlier. I went through the library's system and pulled the full checkout history for every book that came with a note. It took hours, and I had to do it bit by bit so no one would notice. I thought maybe I'd find a pattern, someone checking out the same kinds of books or returning them around the same time. But no, the borrowers were all over the place, different names, different addresses, even different towns. Some of the books hadn't been checked out in months before they showed up with a note inside. That's when it hit me. Whoever was doing this didn't have to check the books out. They could have just come in, slipped a note in, and walked away. The realization made my skin crawl. They'd been inside, probably while I was there, watching. The next day I came in early again, and everything felt off. The lights buzzed a little louder than usual. The place felt colder, even though the thermostat was normal. I walked past the shelves slowly, almost afraid to touch anything. When I got to the fiction section, I found a book already halfway pulled out, like someone had just been holding it. My heart started racing. I pulled it the rest of the way out, the silent patient. Of course, the note inside was long, and this time it was written on the back of a library due date slip. It said, "You think you're innocent. You don't remember the water, the screaming, the look in her eyes. But I do. I saw you standing there, smiling." I dropped it. I actually dropped the book. I just stood there shaking, thinking about that last word, smiling. That word didn't make sense. None of it did. Unless they were remembering wrong. Or I was. I didn't go back to the library the next day. I called in sick and stayed home, barely sleeping, jumping at every sound. I kept thinking maybe the notes would stop if I wasn't there, if I just removed myself from whatever was happening. But around noon, someone knocked on my door. Just once. A single sharp knock. When I opened it, there was no one there. Just a book on the doormat. No envelope, no wrapping. Just a hardback copy of Beloved, one we didn't even have in the library's system. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. Inside the front cover, scrawled in the same red ink, was the final note I've ever received. "You can't hide in silence. She still screams for you." That was it. No threats. No name. Just those words. I sat on the floor holding that book for almost an hour, too scared to cry, too numb to think. And then it stopped. No more notes. No more books. Nothing. Like it never happened. I went back to work a few days later, waiting for something, anything, to show up. But everything felt normal again. Nobody ever brought it up. I kept all the notes, stuffed in a folder I buried in the back of my closet. Sometimes I pull them out, just to remind myself it was real, that I didn't imagine it. But I never figured out who left them, or why. I never found out who she was. And the worst part is, I don't think I ever will. Sometimes, late at night, I think I hear something in the silence. A splash. A scream. I tell myself it's just in my head. I have to, because if it's not, then maybe they were right about me all along. I'm not sure if sharing this will help me sleep better, or just make it worse. This happened a few months ago, and it's been eating at me ever since. My wife and I decided to host an old friend of mine, Derek, for the weekend. We hadn't seen him in years, not since college, and he was passing through town for some work thing. It was supposed to be chill, catch up, have a few beers, maybe hit the lake. He arrived on a Friday night with just a small backpack, said he'd travel light since it was only a couple of days. Nothing seemed off. He was the same Derek, funny, laid back, a bit of a loner, but that was just how he always was. Saturday morning, he said he was heading out early to check out some hiking spots nearby and maybe grab lunch in town. My wife and I stayed back, just did our usual weekend errands, some cleaning, that kind of stuff. Throughout the day, I noticed something weird, like hearing footsteps upstairs when I knew no one should be there. At one point, I swear I heard the floorboards creak in the hallway above the kitchen, but I brushed it off as the house settling. Our place is old, things make noises. But then, when I went to throw laundry in the guest room, where Derek was staying, the door was locked from the inside. That stopped me cold. I knocked, no answer. Tried the knob again, and it was suddenly open. Empty room. Curtains drawn. Bed made. But I could swear I smelled his cologne in there, faint, like he'd just been inside. When Derek came back that evening, I asked him how the hike was. He said it was good, nothing special, just needed some air and time to think. Totally normal answer, except he didn't have mud on his shoes. No dirt, no signs he'd been out in the woods all day. He even wore the same hoodie he had on the night before. I found it weird, but didn't push. We had dinner, watched a movie, and everything seemed fine. But later that night, when I went to take the trash out, I noticed something that really got under my skin. His car hadn't moved. It was still parked in the exact same spot from the night before, right under the street lamp in front of our house. I even checked the tires. No tracks in the gravel. No disturbed leaves. Nothing. That was the moment my gut really started screaming. I didn't say anything to my wife yet, but I barely slept that night. I kept hearing noises, soft ones, like movement above us. Our attic is just a crawl space really, nothing but insulation, and some old junk we haven't touched in years. But that night, it felt like something was up there. A low thud around 2 a.m. had me sitting straight up in bed. I even got up and walked around, checked every room. Derek's door was shut. I didn't knock. Just stood there staring at it, thinking, either I'm losing my mind or something's really off. Sunday morning, I decided I wasn't going to let it go. I casually asked Derek if he was heading out again, and he nodded, saying he'd be gone most of the day. About 10 minutes after he left, on foot, which was strange considering he had a car, I told my wife everything. The noises, the locked room, the untouched car. She looked freaked out, but agreed something wasn't right. We went into the guest room together. It was still neat, like no one had even slept in the bed. The pillow didn't have that dent in it, you know? Like when someone's head's been there all night. The weirdest part? His backpack wasn't in there. It had been the night before. I remembered seeing it next to the bed. Now it was just gone. That's when my wife suggested checking the attic. I hesitated. I mean, who thinks to do that? But I couldn't shake the feeling that whatever was happening, it had to do with that space above us. I grabbed the step ladder from the laundry room, pulled down the attic door, and climbed up slowly. The light up there barely works, it flickers sometimes, but I could already see something wasn't right. There was a corner of the attic that had clearly been disturbed. Dust cleared out, insulation pushed aside. And right there, tucked between two beams, was his damn backpack. Alongside it, a rolled-up sleeping bag, a half-eaten bag of chips, a bottle of water, and one of our dining room chairs, like he'd dragged it up there to sit on. I just froze. My wife was still at the bottom of the ladder asking what I saw, and I didn't know how to respond. I remember my hands started shaking, and my mouth went dry. The bag was definitely his. I recognized the patch on the side, the same one he had in college. None of it made sense. Why would he be sleeping up here when we offered him a bed? Why lie about leaving the house? I climbed down, told my wife what I saw, and we locked the attic hatch immediately. I think we were both too scared to even say out loud what we were thinking. Something about it felt invasive, almost like we'd been watched the whole time. Like he was hiding from us, or hiding something else entirely. We waited for him to come back, and when he did, it was like nothing was wrong. He came in all casual, talking about some art gallery he stumbled across in town. I just nodded and played along while my wife sat stiff on the couch, barely saying a word. I kept staring at him, wondering how long he'd been sneaking around in our house. Did he ever actually leave? Or had he just been crawling through the attic, coming down when we weren't looking? I almost asked him outright, but something told me not to. Something in his eyes was off, blank, like he wasn't really there with us. I didn't sleep at all that night, and neither did my wife. We locked our bedroom door, and just waited for morning to come. First thing Monday morning, I told Derek we had an unexpected family emergency, and that we had to leave town for a few days. I lied, obviously. I just needed him out of the house. He didn't question it at all. Just said, no problem, grabbed his keys, which made no sense, since he hadn't driven once, and left within 10 minutes. No emotion, no confusion, like he'd been waiting for it. As soon as he pulled away, my wife and I went straight to the attic again. The backpack was gone. The bedding, chair, snacks, everything. It was like it had never been there. But the dust was still disturbed, and the smell of sweat and old food still lingered. That's when we realized he must have gone up and cleared it out before we even woke up. We searched every inch of the house that morning, trying to find anything that proved we hadn't lost our minds. Eventually, in the crawl space behind the water heater, we found something he'd missed, a small notebook. It was filled with scribbles, dates, and what looked like entries about us. 9:15 a.m., she's in the kitchen. 10:30, he's folding laundry. Almost came upstairs. 2 a.m., they heard me. Too loud. I felt sick. It was like he'd been tracking us, documenting our every move like some kind of experiment. My wife broke down, crying right there on the basement floor. We still don't know how long he was up there. Maybe from the very first night. Maybe he never left at all. We never heard from him again. No calls, no texts, no social media activity. It's like he vanished right after he drove off. I even tried contacting a mutual friend to see if they'd heard from him. Nothing. I thought about going to the police, but what could I even say? Hey, our friend stayed with us and might have been living in our attic spying on us. Without proof, it would have sounded insane. And even if they believed me, what law did he break? It still keeps me up at night, thinking about how normal he acted, how calmly he left, like he'd already gotten what he came for. Sometimes I wonder if we were just one stop on a list. If he's doing the same thing somewhere else right now. To this day, we haven't touched the attic again. We keep it locked, even though we know he's gone. Or at least, we think is. I've since installed cameras in and around the house, but nothing ever showed up. Still, some nights, when everything's quiet and the house settles just a little too loud, I feel that familiar chill run down my spine. Like someone's watching. Like someone knows we found out. We still don't understand what the hell that weekend was really about. What he wanted or why he lied. All I know is, he told us he spent the days out and about, but I have no doubt now, he never left the house. Like any other Monday, my husband, Jake, and I left for work early, juggling coffee mugs and our usual half-asleep morning routine. By lunchtime, though, everything started to feel off. Jake texted me a link with no explanation, just the words. "Did you do this?" Curious, I clicked it, and my stomach dropped. It was a listing for our apartment on a rental site, complete with interior photos. At first, I thought it was some mistake, but then I noticed the photos were unmistakably ours. The cluttered bookshelf in the corner, Jake's worn guitar leaning against the couch, even the mug I left on the counter that morning. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I called Jake immediately. We spent a frantic 20 minutes trying to make sense of it, scrolling through the listing over and over like the answers would suddenly appear. The landlord's name wasn't on it, and the contact information was just an email address. Jake tried calling our landlord, Mr. Benson, but he sounded genuinely confused. He swore he hadn't listed anything, and even seemed irritated that we'd accuse him. "Why would I try to rent out a place you're still paying for?" he snapped before hanging up. That should have been reassuring, but it only made the whole situation feel darker, like we'd stepped into some kind of trap we couldn't see. After work, we rushed home, half expecting to find strangers walking through the apartment or the locks changed. But everything looked normal, at least on the surface. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd been violated somehow. I mean, someone had been in our home. They'd taken photos of our things, the spaces we thought were private. Jake checked the windows while I went through the closets, but nothing seemed out of place. No signs of forced entry, no missing items. It was like a ghost had passed through, leaving just enough evidence to unsettle us, but not enough to explain anything. That night, I barely slept. Every noise felt amplified, every creak of the building making my heart race. Around 2 a.m., I swore I heard faint footsteps in the hallway outside, but when I peered through the peephole, the corridor was empty. By morning, my nerves were shot, and I was ready to take action. I filed a report with the rental website, hoping they'd take the listing down, and Jake decided to install a security camera inside the apartment. The thought of being watched, of someone sneaking in without us knowing, was eating away at both of us. The security camera gave me a small sense of control, but I still felt like a stranger in my own home. The following day, while I was at work, Jake called me, his voice low and tense. "The listing's gone," he said. Relief flooded me for a split second before he added, but I checked the camera footage from last night. My heart sank. He hesitated, like he wasn't sure if he should tell me. Someone came in. Around 3:30 a.m. I felt lightheaded, gripping the edge of my desk. Did they take anything? Did they do anything? I asked. No, Jake said slowly. They just walked around. Looked at the shelves, the couch, even the fridge. Then they left. When I got home, Jake showed me the footage. The person, a man in a hoodie, moved like he belonged there, casually examining our things but never touching anything. What chilled me most was how long he stood in the bedroom doorway, just staring at the bed where we'd been sleeping. My mind raced with questions. How did he get in? Why didn't we hear him? And why didn't he take anything? We called the police, but the officer who came out didn't seem particularly concerned. Probably a landlord or a maintenance guy who forgot to notify you, he shrugged. But we knew it wasn't Mr. Benson, and nothing about this felt like an innocent mistake. The next night, I couldn't bring myself to sleep in the bedroom. I set up camp on the couch, with the security camera app open on my phone, refreshing it every few minutes. Jake tried to act calm, but I could see the tension in his jaw. Around midnight, he decided to sleep in the bedroom, insisting we couldn't let fear take over. I stayed in the living room, lights on, heart pounding at every little sound. Around 2 a.m., the app sent a notification. Motion detected. My stomach twisted as I opened the feed. The same man in the hoodie was there again. This time, he wasn't just wandering. He was standing in the middle of the living room, right in front of me. But here's the thing, I didn't see him. Not with my own eyes. He wasn't physically there. Yet, the camera clearly showed him standing just feet away, his head tilted slightly, as if he was looking right at me. My blood ran cold, and I froze, staring at the screen. I didn't even notice Jake rushing in until he grabbed my arm, shaking me out of my daze. I shoved the phone at him, and we both stared in silence at the still image of the man, his face obscured, before the app suddenly crashed. We tried reopening the app, but it wouldn't load. Jake unplugged the camera and then plugged it back in, but it was like the feed had completely wiped itself. That image of the man just standing there was burned into my mind, though. My thoughts were racing, trying to rationalize it. Was it a glitch? Was someone messing with us? But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. Jake, always the skeptic, insisted it had to be a technical error. Yet, for the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. The rest of the night was a blur. We stayed awake, barely speaking, jumping at every creak or gust of wind. By morning, I was ready to pack up and leave, but Jake convinced me to hold off. We don't even know what's happening, he said. I agreed reluctantly, though I felt like we were sitting ducks. That evening, we called Mr. Benson again, practically begging for answers. He seemed genuinely annoyed and insisted he hadn't been inside the apartment in months. Before hanging up, he said something strange. Maybe you two should start looking for a new place. He said it casually, but it sent a shiver down my spine. Jake and I started packing that same night. We didn't even discuss it, we just knew we couldn't stay. As I folded clothes into a suitcase, the security camera app suddenly came back online with a notification. Motion detected. My hands shook as I opened the feed. This time, the man wasn't just standing. He was pacing, moving through our apartment like he was searching for something. Then he stopped, looked directly at the camera, and waved. It wasn't a normal wave. It was slow, deliberate, like he knew we were watching and wanted us to know he didn't care. I dropped the phone, my pulse pounding in my ears. Jake grabbed the phone and stared at the screen, his face pale. "We're leaving now," he said, his voice low and firm. We didn't even finish packing. I grabbed my keys and Jake snatched the essentials, our wallets, the camera, and a bag of clothes. We left everything else behind and bolted. As we drove away, I couldn't stop looking at the apartment building in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the man watching us leave. But the windows were dark and the street was empty. It should have been comforting, but it only made me feel worse, like we'd never really escaped. We checked into a cheap motel on the other side of town, far enough that we felt some distance, but close enough to retrieve our things later, if we ever worked up the courage. That night, I couldn't stop replaying everything in my head. Who was this man? How was he getting in? And why was no one else taking this seriously? Jake tried to calm me down, saying maybe it was just a bizarre prank or someone targeting the wrong apartment. But even he didn't sound convinced. I kept thinking about the way the man had waved at the camera, like he knew exactly what he was doing. The next morning, Jake went back to the apartment alone to grab more of our things. I stayed behind, glued to my phone, refreshing the rental site to see if the listing would pop up again. When Jake returned, he looked shaken. "It's gone," he said, dropping the bag he was carrying. I frowned. "What do you mean gone?" He hesitated, then added, "The camera. It's gone. So is the router. It's like someone cleaned up." My stomach twisted. We hadn't told anyone we left the camera behind. There was no way someone could have known, unless they were watching. To this day, we don't have answers. The listing never went back online, and Mr. Benson stopped returning our calls. We moved out a week later, breaking the lease and losing our deposit, but it didn't matter. Even now, in our new place, I still feel uneasy every time I come home, half expecting to see that man standing in the living room. Jake says I'm paranoid, but I know what I saw. Sometimes I wonder if he'll show up here too, because whoever he was, it felt like he wasn't finished with us.